fans that you're trying to attract.
Yeah, just something out there too. For us, it's always about trying to keep them in the room. And when I say them, is the athlete. So in the process of coming up with content, I like to pitch ideas to guys all the time. You'll see a guy at an event and you'll maybe say, hey, what do you think about this? And they might add a little jazz to it, and that might get you to the next point where, okay, well, that gets us here. How do we get to the next step? But you got to think of the athlete as the content creator in the terms of they want to be creative too. So not only do you have to be authentic to your brand and what you're trying to get accomplished, but you also have to stay authentic to their brand as well at the same time.
You want us all to answer, or should we go?
Oh, no, it looked like Evan was about to jump in, but if he doesn't have anything, we can keep it going. You speak about the idea of getting it straight from the athlete and how important that is to make sure you see who they really are. And especially within these last few years, you see athletes creating these platforms for themselves where they can present this message more specifically straight from themselves, such as the Players Tribune, Uninterrupted. What is it that you think it is about these media platforms that is so appealing, and how is it that other media platforms now that didn't have that approach of putting it straight, giving the pen straight into the athlete's hand, that now they need to incorporate with them in order to survive themselves?
I think in the athlete's perspective, when we do these things, when we do these creative things and creative ways to connect with the fans, it's I always get that, oh, he's just like me. We're like we play a sport, we play in these venues with thousands of people, and we have this image of, oh, he's different. But when we're given opportunities to connect with fans and be real and create relatable content that just engages us with the viewers or people that are engaging with that content, just makes it more connective. And it's kind of weird just because every time I meet somebody and get to know them and kind of have a conversation with them, they're always like, dude, you're just like me. You're just like a normal person. You're just good at running around and catching the football. But
Really good.
I'm okay. But I think it's just people are starting to realize that, and these companies and these outlets are starting to realize that these fans just love connecting and feeling relatable with the celebrities or athletes.
Yeah, and I would just add on to that and say relatable is exactly the right word. And I think that, when we launched Ace Media, we did so in a landscape in which athlete content historically, a generation ago, meant 30 microphones standing around a guy in a towel in a locker room. And that was athlete content. With the advent of social media, with fantasy sports and people's affinities really attaching to players and people's expectations evolving, it became an opportunity to say, hey, athletes are people too. It sounds silly, right? But, we all go to work and then we come home from work and we scratch our dog behind the ears and, pick up a guitar or whatever it is we do. Athletes do the same thing. They still want to be the best at their profession that they can be, but they also have other interests and backstories and passions that, not enough people know about. And I think this climate that we're in now gives us a real opportunity to just, showcase all of that in a very different way and in a very different light.
Yeah, I'm a big, I like Liverpool, the soccer team, and I must have spent 90 minutes after they won the Champions League final on Instagram, and they were all creating their own Instagram live videos of what was going on in the locker room and them hanging out with each other. And it's like in this new age of sports broadcast, right? It's like how, as a distribution platform, right, can you work with the Players Tribune, Uninterrupted, the Aces, and even yourself, right? How can you get fans closer to games in more meaningful ways through social? And those are constantly things that we're beginning to think through, because those lines don't exist anymore, right? The days of SportsCenter and watching on the late local news what happened to your team and the traditional press conference, they exist, but that's not where fans get closer to the action anymore.
Yeah, I think, sorry, just to jump on that for a second, one of the things that we always talk about is that the dialogue has shifted. You mentioned the SportsCenters of the world, and there's still great value and entertainment in that, but it's an expert to fan dialogue, right? It's Mel Kiper Jr. telling you who your team should draft. where we want to be and where I think we see the evolution going is it's much more of a peer-to-peer conversation. And it's Evan telling you who, his team should draft or how he's feeling or what he's having for dinner. It's just a different dynamic than it used to be.
Scott, we'll say with you, could you speak a little bit about where you see Ace Media specifically fitting into that spectrum and how exactly they've been able to really kind of get a hold of athletes and make sure that they're in the right places?
Sure. Well, I mean, our role very simply is to support athletes in creating the content opportunities or identifying the content opportunities that they want to pursue. And it's different for everybody. In the NFL, there's 2,000 active players. And I always say there's the right content opportunity for every one of them. The exercise is just figuring out what the right fit is. For Evan, it might be playing Fortnite, which we did with him last season. For somebody else, it might be something entirely different. And I think for us, the defining thread is we work for the players, literally. Like Evan can fire me if I screw this up right after this panel. And that too is a very different place that we come from than even great outlets like the ESPNs or HBOs. There's a third-party relationship there that we don't have. We are built to serve the players, and so we want to create the opportunities that they want to create.
And to add to that, as Fanatics, we've leaned on Ace quite a bit for a number of production opportunities, Fortnite being one, Tuesday Night Fortnite being one. I think having Ace in the room or having Ace available to us has also cut down on the research on the front end, production dollars, also with just the creation of an idea, because they've been in the room with the players. They kind of have a vibe of what player might be good for this or what situation is good for this or what time of year is good for this kind of stunt. So it's been beneficial for us as well to have a group like Ace in the room when we're coming up with ideas even from start.
Your commission check is in the mail. Thank you, Jeff. Attaboy.
Evan, we're going to start the next question here with you, and everybody please jump in on this one. Scott, you talked about the idea that you're working for the athletes. People in my realm as journalists, we're not working for the athletes, but we're working with them. At times, there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect, I feel like, between media and athletes for various reasons. But sometimes, especially just the nature of trying to do a job. Even you saw last month Chris Broussard talking about Kevin Durant and then Kevin Durant firing right back at him on Twitter, and these two allegedly have conversations with each other. What is it about that relationship over time that you think has kind of created this little bit of a rift and tension? And where is it that you see media and athletes playing a role to kind of bridge that gap so that can kind of be dampered and they can go about continue reporting news and presenting the athletes in a way at times when they can't present themselves on social media or through other ventures?
It's a really interesting question, and I'll try to give a real quick response, which is I think the because of all the reasons that we discussed, social media, different expectations, the balance has shifted a bit. I think historically, and not to get all like militant, but all athletes, I think there was a point in time were treated as property. Like they weren't treated as coworkers, peers, collaborators, partners, certainly not by the media, typically, right? So 40 years ago, I think there was just a very different relationship that the media had with athletes. Because of all those factors that have come into play, I think the balance has shifted, and I think athletes and celebrities in general have kind of a seat at the table. And honestly, a lot of the conversations that we have with athletes in all sports, it's not so much about, I want to create this show because I want to make more money. I just want a voice in what's being discussed about me. I don't want somebody else to define me. I want to help in what my definition is.
I think that's a real touchy question because media, it can go both ways. It can boost you in the good times, and they're going to be at your head in the bad times. And as athletes, like I said earlier, I mean, we're normal and we're people too. And when we hear these things, especially if we had a bad game or we're injured or just something negative going on, and everybody has their opinions on it, and it's so easy to see those things or hear those things that are said about us. It's hard to not get caught up in that. It's hard to not want to respond and then say what we really want to say, what's on our mind, but it might not be in the best interest for ourselves. And that's what's so cool about Ace Media, and what they do is they allow us to voice our opinions in the right way, or the smartest way. And it's like I said, it's able giving us a platform to connect and voice our side of the story, or any way we want to connect with a fan or people keeping up with us. It's not kind of about us; it's more for us.
Yeah, okay. Um, when it comes to some of these traditional media athletes, can you talk about what it means when there are athletes who aren't pushing back on it? Like, Evan, if there are any reporters specifically that stick out to you that you have that positive relationship with, what does that mean for you when you actually get to have that interaction as well in the locker room? Those situations where there's somebody that you can trust and that you may, if they do a profile about you, you're gonna retweet that one because I trust this guy presenting. Like, what role does that play, do you feel, in continuing to grow this landscape?
That's a really good question. When I came in as a rookie, we do like a big like rookie symposium thing, and it teaches about all different type of stuff. And media is a big one of them, and they kind of teach us to be respectable, and obviously they're doing their job, so you have to do your job as well. But I try to be a really relatable person, and when I talk to these people every day, I mean, they're at our practice, they storm in our locker room with all types of questions, and you do build a relationship with some of them, and I kind of always just be myself around them, and I get to know some of them, ask about their families, and kind of relate to them, and build that respect level between each other, and so and you can just kind of tell by certain guys, and I mean, they have their motives, and like I said, they're doing their jobs, but there is definitely media people in our building that do cover us and cover the players that are on that same page. They know which lines not to cross, and they know they still know how to do their job, and there's definitely a couple of reporters that I have a really cool and really friendly relationship with, and there's kind of some that I've seen some tweets from or articles that I kind of feel some type of way about. But it's just a big respect thing, and obviously it's important to kind of get to know those guys, even if they write a bad article about you or a bad tweet about something I did or on the field or something. Like I said, everybody has their job, but it's important to kind of build that respect level and try to find ways to relate with them, so they can kind of get to know who you are.
Jeff, when we were in the back, you were talking about one of the promotions you all do with Fanatics where you FaceTime some fans who bought jerseys.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what those reactions from the actual fans kind of show you about what it means when you get to have that direct contact with the athlete?
Yeah, at Fanatics, as the brand of the fan, I mean, our core value, especially in content, is to be authentic to who we are and what our brand is trying to do. So we do these pretty cool things where we FaceTime fans that have recently purchased jerseys on the line. We pull a database, and it's totally at random. Some people think I select names. No, it's totally at random. And you get a genuine reaction, which I think in a lot of circles now, it's hard to find. The undercover stunt's kind of been done and seen, but to FaceTime a fan that doesn't know they're getting FaceTimed and have an athlete on the call, it's priceless. One of my favorite experiences was rookie premiere 2 years ago. We had Baker Mayfield and a dad. The number on the order was a dad's cell phone number because he ordered it for his son. The dad, I was texting with him. He's like, "Hey, my son's been going through some stuff at school. So if Baker just wants to, give him some encouragement on the side, it'd be great." So I showed Baker the note before we FaceTimed him, and he's like, "Oh, dude, that's nothing." Kid picks up the phone, is shocked. He's falling asleep. He's shocked as Baker Mayfield was calling him. And Baker was gave him some just uplifting stuff. And you could see the kid start crying. It was that moment for Baker, he was like, "Dude, this is crazy." The kid is going to remember that forever. And for us as, we're all fans. I'm not necessarily a fan of the Cleveland Browns, but like right at that moment, I was like, man, give me a Cleveland Brown jersey, man, seriously. But yeah, it's on par with some of the best things we've done at Fanatics is the FaceTime calls.
Scott, earlier you had mentioned that idea of the history of the dynamic. And Michael, I wanted to ask you about where do you see the history of that fan dynamic with the athlete and how has that been able to change, and especially with yourself at Hulu with some of this branding and kind of understanding how much the athletes themselves are going to push the fact that you have live sports, and it means a lot different when Dame Lillard's out there talking about Hulu has live sports and how.
Yeah, and I think what starts with the business challenge that we have, right? We're a brand that has largely been known for television, but not live television. We entered the live space a couple of years ago, and there's still generally not only a lot of confusion out there that Hulu has live sports, but that also you don't need to go to cable anymore. Sports is obviously a predominant reason that someone would sign up for a service like Hulu. And we tried a lot of things in the past. Some had worked, some didn't work as much, but we really felt, given where athletes are going on social media and sort of this new revolution where they're breaking news themselves, they're connecting with their fans, kind of without the media or without this intermediary. We're like, well, how can we in an authentic way actually build our brand and create awareness for the fact we have live sports by working with athletes? And it's been working tremendously. And again, I think part of it was if we had created a campaign to try and promote the fact that we have sports and live TV with athletes, but been really over the top with you need to say this and it has to be on brand and giving all these rules to athletes, it wouldn't have worked, right? But using Damian Lillard as an example, we're like, hey, what are you really into? He's like, really into tattoos. So the part of the campaign was, hey, let's give him a fake Hulu as live sports tattoo. And then because of the trust that we built in that relationship, it evolved, right? We started talking to Adidas, and Adidas actually created a Hulu as live sports special edition shoe that he would have worn during a game in the playoffs, but the NBA stepped in the middle. So, we know how that happens. But I think it really is about that trust and trying to just trying to really look out for the athlete and build a campaign around them that makes sense in their voice. And that has opened up a lot of doors for us, and I think it has really helped us solve a lot of the business challenges that we've had for live and getting it out there.
So Scott, you have something to add to that?
No, I thought he said it really well, actually. Can't improve on perfection.
Scott, as you continue to work with athletes with Ace Media and make sure that they have that comfort in creating their brand, where do you see other media outlets? Obviously, there's going to be a role for the Mel Kipers telling you where guys are going to get drafted, but how much more is it going to be on the people who write a game story when at the same time you could just see maybe what Evan's saying in Instagram Live after the game?
I will tell you, one of the most interesting learnings of our business since we've launched is there tends to be this assumption that there's a finite appetite for things, or there's a finite amount of dollars in the marketplace. And we have gotten so much interest from companies or networks that are already in the space, and they're not necessarily moving audience or revenue from one place to us. We're just additive. And I think what we've seen, which has been super interesting, is we'll have partners who already are investing literally millions of dollars in creating broadcasts around the NFL, or using women's soccer players as brand ambassadors, or having U.S. soccer marks. And they still come to us not because they're unhappy with what they're already getting, but because they see this additional layer of opportunity and value that really hasn't been tapped into before. And I think it's, again, I go back to sort of the history and the evolution of both the sports business and content consumption. But if you think of every league as a business as a tripod, right? In the NFL, it's the league, it's the teams, and it's the players, and they all need each other to stand up. But historically, two of those legs have, frankly, driven exponentially more revenue from content than the other. So all we're doing is trying to recalibrate things a little bit. Did that even answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Evan, how much of a pining for this you talked about the idea of when you see something that's just wrong, people want to speak out for that. But even when it comes to just even wanting to share that message, some guys or some athletes in general are just recluses. They don't want to go out there and say but so much on social media or even tell that much about who they are in a personal essay. How much within the locker room do you feel that within guys that they really have that urge to make sure, like, nah, people need to make sure they see who I am, that I'm out here?
I think that kind of just has to come naturally. Social media is a tool for us to market ourselves, and obviously we have reporters and media that get stuff out there, and like I said earlier, there might be things out there that we might not like. We want to voice about ourselves or correct it or fire back. There's definitely a lot of, I'm not the only one that has those urges, and there's some guys that do it anyways. But I think it's just important for us to kind of just to be smart with the way we post and the way we present ourselves, because that's our market. That's our marketing team is in our hand. It's on the camera when we're posting a story or in the caption when we post a picture. It's just important to kind of be smart about that, because we do have followers and we do have people watching, and those same reporters that are tweeting bad about us can spin one of our posts into something even worse, or it could be something good and even add on to more good. So it can go both ways. It's definitely a responsibility for us to kind of be smart with it, and try to be as active as possible, because it could lead to so many things off the field for us to further our brand.
Okay, we only got a few minutes left here, so we're going to turn it to audience Q&A. Do we have the questions queued up in the back already, or no? Anybody with me? Yes, no, maybe? On the prompter? No? Nothing?
There we go.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so Rafi Church asked, anybody in the panel, feel free to hop on. How can social media platforms evolve to better suit the needs of athletes to execute this first-person storytelling? So Evan was touching on this a little bit, but if anybody else wants to kind of hop in and maybe elaborate a little bit more on what the next stage of social media, I guess, would be here to some extent.
For us, we started off in our content world as a UGC, user-generated content vibe, and that's what I think this is getting at, is how can we make that experience better for the athlete? And for us, what we learned just in terms of getting UGC is making it available. So whether an athlete is at an event, give them a hashtag. In order to create a community or a following, the athlete needs to be doing something for that. So for our instance, we put a hashtag on everything. So it'd be smart to, get athletes on some sort of community hashtag and see where it goes.
Anybody else want to? No? Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay.
No, I think on the last one for us, right? We're constantly trying to look at how do you differentiate the experience and create a better viewing experience for consumers, right? That gets you closer to the action. I think everyone offers the same live feed, whether you're on cable, whether you're on a streaming service, but the Amazon folks talked about it earlier too, but there is this era now where you can deliver a much more personalized experience to sports fans. And I think, again, it's all about working with athletes and figuring out what the best experience for that fan is. That's certainly what we're looking to do here.
Okay, question here for Evan specifically. Is there a favorite part about social media that allows you to engage with fans, and is there any good story that you want to share with us?
Ones that you can share with the family audience.
The DMs.
No, there's
Sorry.
the DMs get interesting, but definitely social media like Instagram is really cool because I post a lot of stuff about my family and my sister, Mackenzie. She's an athlete and she played basketball at UGA, and we have a really close relationship. And I have a lot of interaction with fans based on our relationship with my sister. And so it's just kind of a natural thing for me, just posting out of just the love and the fun I have with my sister, but it's able to connect with fans and to kind of get them to know about myself and my family. And also, there's like gaming. Like I'm a big gamer. I love playing video games. I go to work, go to practice, come home, and just chill, play video games. But now there's like streaming services like Twitch, and I play video games on that. And I have people that watch me play video games, and it's and there's like a chat where they can type and send messages to me and talk to me like live while I'm playing, and I can have 8 people in there at once, or I can have like 200 people watching, and it's just it's while I'm doing what I love, while I'm doing what I like to do is just playing video games, I have opportunity to connect with fans and really unique fans that are just there to watch me, and because sometimes we have stuff streaming as a team or a game, you have fans watching the team, but I have my own fans in the chat with me while I'm playing the game. I'm able to connect with them and talk to them while I'm just chilling at home playing video games. So there's just a lot of ways for me to kind of utilize just things I like to do, but at the same time kind of connect with fans and engage with the people that are following me.
Great. Well, that is all our time here. I hope all of you enjoyed yourselves. For Scott, Evan, Michael, and Jeff, thank you all for having us. We will be in the back for a little bit for questions. If anybody else wants to talk to us, I'm pretty sure. But anybody have something to say?
Thank y'all.
Guess we're
Hey,
out.
guys.
Thanks.
Great. Have a good one. Thank you.
All right, y'all, how was that? Pretty solid.